Hi everyone, this is Bermuda here with a few lines back in the workshop with the second part of When Words Speak. This week we're going to be going over pausing. One of the biggest things to remember when you're using pauses is that pauses don't always come at the end of lines. And pauses always don't follow punctuation marks. You don't always pause at a comma or a period, and you don't always pause at the end of the line. In order to convey meaning effectively, we have to look at the poem and figure out through our understanding of the meaning when we pause, what we want to emphasize, and what needs to be left out. So this week I've decided to perform one of my own pieces. It's called Chinatown Station. And the reason I chose to use this particular piece for the pausing segment of this series is because not only do I use internal pausing, but more so a big part of pausing is how it defines what a poem, how it segments, how it breaks down a poem and puts it into different parts. There's also how it can convey just natural emotion, natural reaction to things. So as you're listening to it and as you're watching me, pay attention to my mannerisms and pay attention to where I pause and how it breaks up the pieces of the poem. Chinatown Station by Bermuda. The sounds of the city surround us as we sit on a bench between the tracks of the elevated. The figures of the city are now my thoughts, transfixed in space by mind and without movement. I do not close my eyes. I look out across the city, my arm around you, and have no words to say. Is there any need? Sitting side by side, soon pins and needles begin to prick the tips of my fingers. They twitch for relief, but I continue to hold them at bay. The sensation begins to envelop my wrist, then slowly climbs my shoulder. I realize now that I will lose this arm, my veins infused with you. Is to gain as I have worth the loss? That distant alarm of the car continues its ritual chirping, and I know this is not a dream. For in my dream she is different, flawed and vague, a mosaic of blurred squares, but not here. Here, she is her. Her who sits silently, whose silence is more evocative than any syllable she should speak. She is, and I was, and I continue to try, but the tip of my tongue will not take the silence from her lips. Her body is cold. She tells me this. I, finally here, this moment, this place. She returns all but my fingers as I lead her down the stairs. We stop for a moment under the tracks, on the second of 3 floors, near the corner. In time out. We are in time out. Time out from a world of eyes. Only we embrace. My hands caress the small of your back. The needles prod my heart. Chaste and pure. Love is pain, and pain is real, and only in dreams is pain left out of the deal. So right now I just want to go over a couple of the parts of my performance where I use pausing and what effect that I was trying to convey with that pausing. So you'll see in the write-up, I think the third section here, there's a parentheses. Is there any need? And so with a parentheses, it's kind of, how do you perform that? I mean, that's a big question for most performers. How do you perform parentheses? Do you say it? Do you just leave it there? Do you say a different voice? Is it a character shift? And so what I try to do is I try to pause in between those lines, just kind of set it apart with a couple of seconds. Next going on, you'll see I've done that 4 times. The next part, you can see up until probably about the distant car alarm, the pausing has made it so that there's a flow. There's a rhythm to it. It's very somber. It's very slow. You know, he's just taking in all of these things, the speaker of the poem, and he's just trying to really dissecting, not even dissecting, but just describing the scene that he's in. And so, you know, we'll go on more, and then once he hears this car alarm and it's not a dream, that's when you can see the vitality and the veracity, not the veracity, but the vitality, the life force coming alive in him. The next big part, where I was talking about emotional conveying, is the third parenthetical part, which is she is. You know, when people are thinking, I'm word searching, I'm trying to figure out what's coming next. So what you want to do is you want to give yourself a break. You want to wait. You want to like move your head, not. I'm thinking. I'm trying to act. And so there's a build-up. There's a progression of she is, and then she is. Pay attention to how I said I was. So when I'm writing, I wrote this poem, so I have a really great insight into what I was trying to say. I know it's harder when it's somebody else's poem, but I mean, we can understand it when we explicate a whole poem. That this line, I was, I'm trying to get into the existential feeling of this person, where he's going from thinking she is something, to simply she is. She is here, she is in the now, she is present. And I was, there is no I anymore. And so you can even see where punctuation I ignore sometimes, where like I continue to try, but the tip, where the original punctuation calls for a comma, which would be I continue to try, but the tip of my tongue. Instead, I just go through it. I continue to try, but the tip of my tongue will not take. It's like you want to get that idea out. It's an overflow of emotion. So sometimes, you know, depending on how you're reading it, you know, even the author of a poem is not always the final sayer of what the meaning of a poem is. The next, to kind of create a little bit more of a different part, we're going back to more of the first feeling, where I say, you know, her body is cold. So he gets into this big existential thing and everything, and now she is here, you know. So I turn my head, you know, I pause, and these are all things that when you're doing a poetry reading, that you can put in there. It kind of makes the audience think, is there somebody there? Adds realism to it, you know. I, finally here. And it's, when you have words like here, like H-E-A-R and H-E-R-E that are homonyms, they sound the same, that's a clue too, but maybe I should pause. Maybe I should draw this out. Pause is a great way to emphasize meaning, double meaning, and you should use it like that. It's perfect for that kind of stuff. This moment, this place. So I finally hear her. I've been listening to this city for so long, and now I finally hear her. And also, I'm finally here. I'm finally in this moment, this place. And so by pausing, you can kind of hopefully emphasize that to some of your readers. And then we get, you know, back into caught up into the movement. So my pace is going to be a little bit longer. I'm not going to pause. That way I can create movement through my tempo of words. You know, in time out. Again, right here, we are in time out. So, you know, as an artist and as a writer, I like to play off of those kind of double meanings and those, you know, manipulations of words. The final part of the poem, we embrace, there's this we, there's no more I's, only we. And then the last section, chaste and pure, when I was writing this poem, I wanted it to almost be like a companion piece. It was something meant to add on to it. It wasn't even necessarily has to go with it. That's why it's in parentheses. Again, how do we perform parentheses? Is it part of the poem? Is it not? You know, even hyphens. I mean, geez, don't get me started about Emily Dickinson and her symbolism and her symbols and crazy stuff. Anyways, so this is just me writing, and you know, it's not even close to that. But anyways, so love is pain, and pain is real, and only in dreams is pain. I wanted to make that, you know, even though there's line breaks and there's periods, there is a natural rhyme to it. There is a natural cadence, a natural feel that you want to go with. Don't let the punctuation hinder your natural intuition of how you should read a poem. You know, obviously you want to read a poem multiple times before you feel comfortable with saying this is what it means, but you do want to trust your intuition, especially if you read a lot of poetry and you read a lot of this stuff, or even if you don't, just trust your intuition and just follow that. So, I hope that this was very instructful for you guys. Next week I'm going to be going over character shifts and kind of how different pieces can really be enhanced by different voices, different moves you can make, just a lot of different things. I can be a very loudmouth guy, or I can be a little fancy. I can throw in a little of a pizzeria accidente, mamma mia. Anyways, crazy stuff. Gonna be a lot of fun next week. Voices, maybe even a mask or two, I don't know. But I'll see you guys here next week, same time, same day. And as always, undoubtedly yours, Bermuda.